iOS 7 and 9 didn't just drop, they both went through very weird beta stages, and many things were changed compared to the final release. So I had an idea. Let's check out the very first betas of iOS 7 and 9, and yeah, let's get into this. First of all, we will need to restore the very first beta of iOS 7 onto this thing. And now we will be using Powder Snow to do this, as right here I have an iOS 7.1 device, and we will be taking the blobs from this to restore iOS 7.0 beta 1. On this Mac, I have the IPSW file for iOS 7.0 beta 1, and I'm going to be using Legacy iOS Kit to restore that onto this device. So let me get this device connected up with a lightning cable, and of course right here I have Legacy iOS Kit, so let me get Legacy iOS Kit up and running here. It's probably, oh, I guess I don't have to update it. We're going to do a restore downgrade, and I'm also going to disable baseband update. I heard this from somebody in Legacy Jailbreak's Discord server to try this, probably throw in their user. And okay, so now we're going to do a restore downgrade. We're going to use Powder Snow 7 blobs, IPSW file, yeah, right here, 7.0. I'm going to select my base IPSW for iOS 7.1, and finally I can select my base SHSH. So I'm going to go to my downloads. I'm going to go to my old Legacy iOS Kit folder from forever ago where I have my blobs for this device, SHSH. I believe that's it, so I'm going to hit choose, and okay, just like that, I can now hit start restore. iOS beta detected jailbreak not work popular. So I'm just gonna hit no. no. I'm gonna avoid jailbreaking because I have no idea how buggy this will be when I do this. So anyway, let's use Pwn DFU. So now this device will pop in recovery mode. Oh, I have to hit trust. Okay, send device to recovery mode. All right, now we're gonna put the device in DFU mode. So how that works is we hold the power and home button for about 8-ish seconds, and then let go of that power button and keep holding the home button for another 8-ish seconds. And okay, in a second we're about to go start restoring, and device got successfully pwned. So now we are going to be restoring iOS 7.0 beta onto this device. So I'll leave this on time lapse. If you want to skip to the next chapter where we actually start messing around with this beta, feel free, but this will be on time lapse, so this shouldn't be really long. Okay, after 10 minutes of restoring, I believe iOS 7 is booting on this thing. I will throw this right here so you can see. This will be interesting. Okay, looks like it's doing one final flash before it boots. Okay, good sign. And okay, wow, that is such a thin font. Oh my god. If you know what the iOS 7 setup screen looks like, that it literally looks nothing like this. That font is so thin. Okay, now what the fuck is that sound? Okay, let's set up iOS 7 on this device, shall we? Let me connect up to my Wi-Fi. Okay, let's enable location services, set up that, skip the Apple ID stuff, because obviously that will not work. Agree, use Siri, don't send. And wow, just like that, we are on the very first beta of iOS 7 that first released after WWC 2013. I did disable baseband update, and wow, that settings looks so weird. Whoa. Okay, let's go check out the version number, of course. And there you go, iOS 7.0. And if I show you what the settings menu looks like on final release versus the very first beta of iOS 7, you'll see what I mean. This just looks so weird. Like, it went with this all blue and white look versus like colored icons on each of these things and options. So very interesting that they changed this. But yeah, and overall, I know how I mentioned the font overall looks significantly thinner. I think they're using some ultra thin version of Helvetica Neue, and they're using a slightly more thicker version on iOS 7 full release, and this is iOS 7.0.4, so this is one of the earlier versions of release iOS 7, but you can kind of see how weird this is overall, and this gets even weirder if we go look at the wallpapers. So like, look at that. That's quite literally the iOS 6 lock screen on iOS 7 right there, and of course this is what it's meant to look like right on final release. And another thing I noticed is the apps are significantly lower down on iOS 7 beta versus final release, and that's just a very little thing. Now let's go take a look at the wallpapers, and oh yeah, look, another visual bug right there. Looks like the wallpapers are just not showing up for me. Here, they are. So this is very interesting. And not only that the wallpapers are not showing up, this quite literally is an iOS 6 graphic on iOS 7. So very weird. And another thing I noticed from just messing around with this thing, let's go look at the control center on iOS 7. Release, right? Now let's look at it on the beta. Very weird. I don't even think you can access AirPlay on full release here, but it's on iOS 7.0 beta 1 for some reason. I do not know why, but it's very interesting. And also, like, if we look at deeply at like these music player thing right here, it just shows like the 000 automatically when you're not playing something, but here it has like a couple dashes on the final release. And this wallpaper you're looking at right now never made it to the final release if we look through the wallpaper selection on the final release of iOS 7. Things like the weather app appear to not have changed, so nothing really unique here. The notification center does look significantly different. This one has like less contrast versus the final release, and the text up here is lowercase versus uppercase on the final release. And let's go to the all tab. Nothing different here. Just looks like this has less contrast. Well, there won't be anything on both of these, but you can kind of see that. Let's scroll down and look at stocks. Nothing significantly different here as far as I can see. I want to see if I can get these wallpapers to pull up, so I'm going to power the device on and off, and oh my god, look at that slide to power off on here. Let's look at iOS 7.0. Let's go pull up the slide to power off, and that is so weird. Oh my god. I also just noticed something when doing a reboot. The slide to unlock sequence is significantly different. It has a slightly thinner looking font as usual, and it does not have that like little dash arrow thing when you slide to unlock. And it also has that iOS 6 slide to unlock sound there too as well. Let's check out some other things like folders, and this is so unblurred. Like the folders background's literally blending into the wallpaper. It's so weird. Also, let's try out some of these shortcuts from the control center. Let's see how this works. Interesting animation. Camera. I guess that one's not as buggy as the other one. Let's try out this one. World clock. Okay, that's not really buggy either. Let's just go through the clock app since I have it right here. I don't really see many differences from the final release. Yeah, it's pretty much the same. Maybe this is a brighter white. I honestly cannot tell. Let's take a look at the notes app. I'm curious how much this changed. It really didn't change. The maps app looks slightly less flat on here. I don't know how else to describe it. If we look deeply on like that search bar right there, it kind of reminds me of like Google's early material design with how it looks, where it kind of has like a little shadow there. And it also has a slightly different design at the bottom. Like I have the option for 3D right here and some slightly different icons compared to the full release. Let's try out multitasking and see if anything's different here. Nothing different from what I can see. If you go into FaceTime, you can see this has way less contrast on the blur with me in the background, of course, and this one's much more blurry and has like a white look on top of it. So very interesting. Also, every once in a while I get this bug where half the dock just disappears. I'm not sure why, but it's like half the blur effect just goes away. It's very weird. The search function also really does not look much different, although this looks like a lot less blurred here. But yeah, there's not much difference in the videos application. Let's take a look at the game center because I'm kind of curious on how this looks. The only difference here is when it fully loads up right here, it says game center instead of sign in with your Apple ID on 7.0 beta. And there's also a slightly different read here. So it says use your Apple ID to play games with your friends wherever they are on the beta. Full release, it says start using Game Center with your Apple ID to play games online with your friends wherever they are. So just a slight difference in wording, but kind of weird. And down here, it has some slightly different options, although I think they do the same thing. Want a different ID for Game Center versus create a new Apple ID. Forgot your Apple ID or password, and it's just the same. But yeah, you can kind of see how many differences there are. It's just such a weird beta. But I mean, for the biggest redesign ever, it's all right. It's very buggy. Let's take a look at Newsstand now. The only difference is the text down here is unreadable. For some reason, it really has the same amount of blur from what I can see. Status bar, some shadows when it goes into apps. I just noticed that. It doesn't really have that on full. No difference in the calendar. And know how the beta has that weird slide to unlock? I just noticed on full release that weird slide to unlock still made the cut if you go to the wallpaper selection. So pretty cool. And overall, there's much more shadowing on iOS 7 Beta 1 overall compared to the final release, which honestly looks a bit better with all the parallax effects. I don't know why they didn't keep this. It's not really mimicking much anyway, so I don't know why they couldn't just keep in drop shadows. Drop shadows does not mean it's not minimalistic. I don't know. Another thing I just noticed is on iOS 7 beta, the flat icons for all these third-party apps that are connected to iOS are still skeuomorphic and glossy. But if we look at the final release, they are actually flattened out. There's virtually no difference in the camera app other than the HDR option being towards the bottom with a much more unreadable thing. The only difference from beta to the final release in the Contacts app is the search bar is left aligned instead of center aligned. It also has, instead of like a all white thing around the search bar, it's black on the final release versus the beta. So weird. And from looking around here, there's not many other significant differences other than the voice memos application being absent from the iOS 7.0 beta. I really don't know why this was on iOS 7.0 beta. Very weird. Maybe it's because of the certain IPSW file I'm using. I don't know. It's just so weird. Such a weird operating system. But overall, that just kind of concludes my look at this. There's not much other stuff I can go look at. I mean, I can look at the stocks app. There's nothing different here, noticeably, other than there being a Yahoo thing down here. Although this could be different because I'm using a tweak to fix this. But yeah. So today we'll be trying the very first beta of iOS 9 on an iPhone 5, so yeah, let's get into this. So the very first thing we must do is get this thing running iOS 9, of course. At the moment, as you can see, it is in recovery mode due to me tethering iOS 8 Beta 1 onto this thing. So we're going to fix that by, of course, restoring 9 on here. So right here, we have the IPSW file for iOS 9.0 Beta 1. So we can very easily use Legacy iOS Kit to restore this firmware onto this device. Now, if you do not want to see this process, you may skip to the next chapter, which I will have on this video. So I'm going to use Powder Snow 7X Blobs. I'm going to select my target IPSW, which will be this iOS 9 IPSW. I am now going to select my base IPSW, which will be the one I am restoring from, which will be iOS 7.1. So I'm going to grab that IPSW right here. And then I'm going to select my base SHSH, which will be right here. And then I can finally hit Start Restore. I am going to disable my jailbreak option, as majority of the time that will not work on iOS betas. I'm going to disable verbose boot, and now I'm going to put this device into DFU mode. Looks like we are now restoring this device. I will leave this on time-lapse just so you can see what happens, but again, feel free to skip to the next timestamp. I will make this very short in my editing though. Looks like it just failed that, so I'm just gonna tether boot it. Alright, now that we have iOS 9 Beta 1 on this thing, let's take a look at its differences to the final release. First thing you will notice is on iOS 9 Beta 1, it has a different wallpaper. It has this like bluish, greenish, purplish wave, and it looks a lot better to its final release version in my opinion. And the sad thing about this is if you go into the wallpaper selection on final release, you'll see that this wallpaper is just completely absent and isn't even there at all. So like you don't even get the option to use this wallpaper if you really do want to. And if we look at this wallpaper selection a bit further, there is a bunch of huge differences with the wallpapers. Of course, it is just basically reusing the wallpapers you saw in iOS 8, excluding this one like wave wallpaper. So here is the actual final release iOS 9 wallpapers. You can go through here and you can see there's not many ones that were carried over from iOS 8, and they're mostly completely different. So let me bring in my iOS 8.4 iPod Touch 6 just so you can see the differences here. So of course you can see, excluding this one wave wallpaper, the wallpaper selection is pretty much identical here, so not really many differences. And of course, you still get all the cool ones from iOS 7, which kind of makes me question why they removed all of these. I know it would be like a pretty big wallpaper selection, but if they left all of these ones from iOS 7 and 8 in there, it could have been like the best wallpaper selection you could have seen in any iOS version ever. And now another really big thing. On iOS 9 Beta 1, weirdly, you do not get the option for the Apple Music application on here in beta, which is super weird. And it did not end up releasing all the way up until Beta 3, which is super weird. So, of course, we can see the differences right here. So here is iOS 9.3x, and you can see it has Apple Music, and it has pretty much everything here. You can also see it has the white Apple Music icon, while, of course, on iOS 9 Beta 1, you can see it has the older styled red music icon, which was on iOS 8.3 and earlier because it didn't have Apple Music integrated yet. Apple Music weirdly didn't even get integrated into iOS, like at least on like the main versions, all the way up until iOS 8.4. So here's an iOS 8.4 device, and you can see it does have Apple Music, and we can go through here and take a look at stuff, although I don't have it connected to the internet. Now, from what I've found about this like whole entire weird debacle with like Apple Music not even being on the very first developer beta, and same with the second one, I've not really found any reasoning on why they did this other than they're just staggering the releases of it for some reason, which is kind of weird because this is a developer beta and you'd think that they would at least give the developers a chance to test out Apple Music and stuff like that, which is kind of weird. You would think they would give it to them immediately, but I mean, it's whatever. It's not that big of a deal. The Spotlight Search UI also has a slightly different look on the beta. Now, I do not know if this is something with me not being connected to the internet at all on this thing, but you can't really see anything nearby you for like things like restaurants and stuff like that, which was a big feature with Spotlight. There also is a cancel button here, which just basically takes you back to the home screen, and this is absent from the fine release. I don't even know why you need this because you can easily just slide back with a gesture, and I think Apple figured that out very quickly and they removed that. The News app is also completely absent from iOS 9 Beta 1. So even if you try to go look for it in the extras folder, you will not see it. And the thing even weirder about this is not only is it completely absent, you do not even get the newsstand application that you would see on something like iOS 8. So here's iOS 8, you have the newsstand application. And the difference between this and the News app is, the News app, of course, is a news app. You can see news feeds and stuff like this. Way before that, you would actually have to like manually sync your stuff with iTunes or iCloud, and you would basically grab like magazines and stuff that you would download off the internet, which is completely different to having an actual live news feed. And you would think they'd give this to you on the betas if they did not provide this to you. Well, not in the betas, I should probably say, because I bet they did give this to you later on, but on beta 1, it's kind of weird that they just did not give this to you at all. Now, this isn't really a difference to the fine release, but I do just kind of want to bring this up very quickly. The multitasking views, both iOS 8 and iOS 9 are very different. On iOS 9 Beta 1, you can see it has like this like stacking look, where all of the apps you have are stacked on top of each other, and it is completely different to something like iOS 8, as you can just view all of these apps from like a overhead view, and this just kind of looks better in my opinion, but I mean, they did do away with this, and they haven't changed it since. So I guess is what we're stuck with. In the newly added Wallet app, you cannot really see many differences here, other than like the colors overall being a lot more dull on the final release of iOS 9, and I don't know why they did this, but this just kind of looks worse. In the iBooks app, the look on the My Books feed is significantly different on both of these iOS versions. On the final release of iOS 9, also, this is so buggy, probably due to me not being connected to the internet on here, but it would have a much more dark mode-esque look, which is kind of weird because this is iOS 9. Of course, you do not have any option for dark mode, while on the beta version, of course, you just get this more whiter look, which is kind of more consistent with the rest of the UI on iOS 9 Beta 1. As you can see, you can go through here and it is just all like a white background, which is also a lot more consistent, as I mentioned. So like, here's the fine release, of course. I just got it to work. You can go through here and the background is white on literally everything except for the My Books feed, which is super weird. The Watch app on iOS 9 Beta 1 is just called Apple Watch, and that is one of the big differences you will notice between iOS 9 Beta 1 and the fine release of iOS 9. As you can see, I only see the option for My Watch in here, and to pair a watch, but on iOS 9 fine release, you can go through the Explore tab and the Feature tab. Another big thing about iOS 9 is it completely redesigned the Notes app, where you could do stuff like draw on it and find your stuff, as you can see, and you can add almost everything, and it just basically tells you right up front. So let's hit continue, and let's go check out what this looks like. So from what I can see here, there's not really anything different on this part, other than you being able to see a recently deleted thing even when you did not even delete anything on iOS 9 Beta 1. Now, in the actual notepad, you will not really see many differences, other than there being a check mark for where you can like input a list on the final release of iOS 9. As here on the Beta 1 version, you would have to hit this plus button to access it, and it's just a lot more easier to access on the final release, of course, because you can just hit one button and you're there. But then you would go here, and then you would hit this, and then you can input your checklist here. Now, I don't know if this is like an iPad exclusive thing here, but the UI is slightly different in the Game Center on iOS 9 Beta versus the final release. Now, here you can see all the information to sign in up front, while on iOS 9 Beta 1, you would hit the sign in button, and then you could bring up your thing where it says use existing Apple ID or create your new Apple ID for the Game Center. The podcasts icon also has a slightly different look on iOS 9 Beta 1 versus final release. So here's the icon for podcasts right here, and then there is final release, and that is like a much more modern looking podcast icon from what I can see. This looks a lot more like something you would see on later iOS versions. Now basically those are the major differences you will notice. And since this is an iOS 9 video, we have to do the iconic slide to unlock before we end this video off. So let's slide to unlock on iOS 9 Beta 1. Let's also slide to unlock on this iPad Pro. Let's slide to unlock on iOS 9 fine release on this iPhone SE. And since I have it on hand, let's slide to unlock on this iPod Touch 6 running 8.4. And yeah, that's the video. If you enjoyed this video, please consider dropping a like, subscribing with notifications on, hyping the video, and sharing this to someone that would find this interesting. Also, please consider checking out my social media accounts, which I have in the description and in the end card. I have a second YouTube channel where I post my short form content. I have a Twitter, I have a TikTok, and I have a Reddit. But yeah, this has been Derek from Certified Legacy, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.
What we do here is go back. Loud.